Hello YouTube, and welcome once again to my video blog. Today is my 99th video blog, and I'm going to be talking about the topic of friendship, mostly making friends and keeping them, which is something that I have had difficulty with for a long time, and I think I still have difficulty with. I'm not someone who has a lot of friends. I don't like being alone, I wish I had more friends, but I'm just not very good at meeting people, I guess, and staying in touch with them. And I guess you could say I am somewhat antisocial. I don't really want to be antisocial, but I behave in antisocial ways. And I think that's cost me some potential friendships in my life. And, well, I think there's many reasons why I am antisocial. That is why I've isolated myself in my life. My transition, my being trans might be one of them. I think obviously when you're trans and you're still, non-transitioned in the closet, you very well might be hiding like a big part of your personality, hiding your true self, trying to repress, those things and putting on a facade to the world of someone that's not really you. And transition can be a very liberating experience in that sense. When you transition, you finally get to show the world your real self. And I personally, assumed that when I would transition, I would finally be able to be myself, and that this would help me to, make more friends. And I think it has to some extent, to some extent. I have more friends now than I did before transition, especially since I think the truth is, when I started my transition and I was in that awkward in-between phase, I isolated myself even more than before, because I didn't pass. I dressed very awkwardly, for a long time. I was transitioning, and I still wasn't full-time, and I had decided that I wasn't buying any male clothes anymore. So for like two years of my life, I decided to get rid of my male clothes, not buy any more male clothes, but I wasn't ready to, go out in the world dressed as a woman just yet. And so what I ended up doing was wearing women's clothes, women's jeans and t-shirts that could sort of pass for men's clothes, but in reality, were just ill-fitting and made me look, badly dressed all the time. And yeah, for that whole time I didn't take care of my appearance, and I think I was losing friends in school too, because, people didn't really understand my transition when I was going through, and I didn't really talk about it very much, I guess, because, well, it's not something you just bring up, with everybody all the time, I didn't know how to, find support. And so, yeah, my transition has initially caused me to, for a while, isolate myself even more than before. And now finally that I'm full-time, I am finally starting to, make friends again and, live my life as a woman. And I think I am genuinely, more myself, more, more bold, more capable of showing myself to the world. But, my problems aren't completely fixed. The truth is, my social awkwardness dates from a long time, and it's not just related to my transition. I have spoken about my past before, but like the fact is, I was raised by a woman who is schizophrenic, who is insane, has been diagnosed schizophrenic, and has refused treatment for years. So like during my childhood, she was already a little strange, but when I got to age 10, she lost her job. She had a pretty good job, but she lost it and ended up on welfare. She's been on welfare since, 96, still is on welfare. So, I had to deal with some difficult things as a kid, I never met my father. I was raised by a schizophrenic woman, and I had to go, to live in poverty for like most of my teenage years. She was on welfare, and we were getting food at food banks and buying clothes at the Salvation Army, like my mom had a budget of like maybe $150 to buy me clothes for the whole year. I don't even know if it was actually 150, maybe closer to $100 to buy me clothes for a whole year at like Salvation Army. So during my teenage years, I was badly dressed, poor, um, and had to deal with my mom's insanity at home. She would shout insults at the walls and blah blah blah. Anyways, I think you can start seeing, maybe where the problem is there. I I was living in an environment that was very hostile at home, and I couldn't even trust my own mother. And she had started isolating herself. When I was a kid, my mom had friends, but as a teenager, she stopped going out. She lost contact with all of her friends, cut contact with her family. She was never going out anymore, and I didn't realize that at the time, but basically when I was a teenager and all the way up until I was an undergrad in university, I didn't go out either. Like, I followed her example. I never went out. That's just not something I did. I had a few, friends, acquaintances at school, but we basically almost never did anything outside of school. In university, I never did anything outside of school with anyone, never went to any parties. And trust me, it's not because I didn't want to. It's just because I didn't know how to socialize. I was isolating myself without really even realizing it. So that's caused me issues. And, obviously the trans factor in there made things even harder, it made things awkward in terms of me having to, like I said, put up a facade to the world. And, I was hiding my transness from the world. I was also not really openly talking about the fact that my mom was insane. And, perhaps to make matters worse, my mother has somehow always managed through all of my life to make me go to schools that are filled with, rich kids. When I was a kid, in elementary school, my elementary school was in Outremont, which is the rich neighborhood of Montreal. And in high school, she managed to somehow get me into a private school. The private school gave me a scholarship. And, when I was in university for my undergrad, I went to McGill. So, all of my life, I've been, in the same classrooms as kids who had, upper middle class parents and who could get anything they wanted whenever they wanted, and went on trips and all the time, with their family and, stuff like that. And that, I think, made it even harder for me to relate to the other people around me, I came from such a different background. I had such a different life experience from everyone around me, that I just didn't really know how to find a common ground and make friends, really. Just felt like I was so different from everyone. And being transgender, I guess, is something that, made me feel even more alien on top of all of this, because it's I've spoken about this before, but, I think, gay kids have to go through difficult things when they're teenagers. There can be a lot of discrimination, but at least, when you're gay, you know what gay is. Everybody knows what a gay person is. If you have same-sex desires, you have some kind of a reference point. You see characters in movies. You see people around you. Everybody knows a gay person. There's always some visibility of the gay community. And so you have a fair chance of realizing that you're gay and understanding your situation, and perhaps even getting some support. And, I don't want to trivialize the condition of gay people. I think it's still hard to be gay, especially in the more conservative areas. But it's even worse when you're trans, because when you're trans, you can have those thoughts. You wish you were the opposite gender, the opposite sex. And I myself, when I was a teenager, I just felt like I couldn't understand what I was feeling. I always wanted to be a girl since I was a kid. And it seems like nobody expressed those kinds of feelings. I clearly wasn't a gay person, and so what did that make me? I just assumed that I had some weird perversion that I didn't know how to explain, but I couldn't really talk about with anyone because nobody would understand. They would just think that I was like crazy, fucked up somehow. And I really couldn't explain it myself. So that was pretty difficult to live with. But anyways, I guess enough about, all those difficulties. What I want to talk about in this blog is also the realizations that I came to during my transition and, as a person. I am someone who likes to introspect a lot, I analyze my own behavior, I think about what I do, and I try to understand what I do wrong and, to improve myself as a person. And, for a number of years, I've had difficulty making friends, and I just assumed that, there was something not wrong with me, but wrong with everybody else in the world. I can't make friends because nobody's good enough to be my friend, or everybody's weird in a way that makes it impossible for them to be my friend. But, I've come to understand eventually that usually when you think that there's a problem with everybody in the world, it's because there's a problem with you. I am the common factor in the equation. I am the person who has a problem making friends with everybody else. It's not everybody else that has a problem making friends with me. And once I understood that, it allowed me to look at my behavior and try to understand what it is that makes it that I don't have a lot of friends. And I think, like I said earlier, the truth is that I engage in some amount of antisocial behavior. I'm a pretty judgmental person. I easily judge people. I also don't trust people easily, which maybe goes hand in hand with being a bit judgmental. I couldn't trust my own mother, and so I've developed, behaviors, I guess, to protect myself. I don't trust people in general. I don't trust people easily. In order for me to trust you, you have to prove that you're reliable, and when people tell me things, I don't necessarily, take them at face value. I have to examine what they said and, assess, the truthfulness of that, And so, by doing that, if you're very judgmental, you cut yourself a lot of opportunities, And also, I guess I have a tendency to be judgmental in other ways, to not be very tolerant of people's flaws. I'm a very punctual person. If I say I'm going to be somewhere at a certain time, I usually do pretty well at that. But a lot of people are not that way. A lot of people will invite you to go out at some point, and then they'll cancel at the last minute. And, it used to be that if someone did that to me, just once, I would get, pretty pissed at them and maybe, blacklist them. But I think the truth is, if you want to have friends, you have to be willing to accept that, people have flaws. Nobody's perfect, including yourself. And accept that people, do things like that. But, even if someone often cancels, meetings and going out, it doesn't mean that they can't be a fun person to hang out with and that they can't be your friend. So that's something that I've come to understand. And another, I think, important lesson is also that, people don't always come to you. I feel like in my daily life, I am pretty isolated. I work with computers. I'm doing a PhD, and I'm not taking any classes right now. So what ends up happening is I go to school, and I have a desk, in an office, the lab for, all my supervisor's students. And, I just go at my desk, and I set up my laptop, and I work all day alone in lab with, no windows. And, I don't meet a lot of people. The people that I meet every day are always the same people. And because I'm not taking any classes, I'm not, meeting new people all the time. And so I isolate myself. And so if I want to make friends with people who aren't in the lab, for example, then I have to make an effort, to go and talk to people, to find events to go to potentially make friends. And I think the internet is an extremely, useful resource for that, especially in Montreal. It's a huge city, And there's a thing called like the queer event calendar that announces a bunch of queer events, you know, and I end up going to quite a few of those with my girlfriend. And you know, of course, making friends is something, you know, like making friends is perhaps like making money. You know, the more money you have, the easier it is to make more money. Well, the more friends you have, the easier it is to make more friends. Because once you start having a network of friends, you will meet, you know, their friends and people that they know. And the more friends you have, the more people you end up meeting, and the more opportunities there are for friendships. You know, so that's like my lesson number 2. If you want to make friends, you have to make an effort. You know, staying at home and, you know, self-pitying is not going to make you more friends. And, well, the final lesson, and perhaps the most important, is that you have to try to keep in touch with people. And I find, you know, Facebook is pretty useful for that. You know, if you can add people on Facebook, you can at least, you know, find out about things that they're doing, you know, and comment on their posts, and they can comment on yours, and etc. It's a nice way to keep in touch. And of course, you know, inviting people to things, you know, like I used to basically always wait for people to invite me to things. But, you know, people get tired of that. You know, if it's always the other people who are inviting you to do things with them and you never invite them back, then sometimes they just get tired. You know, at some point they stop inviting you and you never invite them, and then proof, you know, you lost contact with that person. So anyways, I guess maybe the conclusion of all this is that making friends and keeping your friends, you know, requires some amount of work. I personally think it's important because I don't like being isolated. I don't like being alone. I think that, you know, I am the way I am, and I have the difficulties that I have because of my upbringing, my life experience, and all that. You know, but having friends is important for your personal growth, and you know, because everybody needs human contact. You know, humans are social creatures. And yeah, I guess that's it for today. And if you have any comments, feel free to comment on the video. So today was video blog number 99, and I'm hoping to do something a little special for my blog number 100. Yeah, so that's it for today, people. Bye bye.